Hey, welcome back to the Disney Plus Everyday Challenge. Today we have the X-Men, the animated series from 1992. This is, for so many people, their first introduction to the X-Men. It's a quintessential, just jumping on point for so many. For me, I have to admit, I really didn't watch this that much. I saw it here and there. It's not part of my childhood. It's part of my adulthood. To a small degree. I was more in the comics. I've been reading the comics for forever, and anything else that took a different take on it really wasn't my thing, I guess. I just wasn't into it as much as some people. For many, though, I mean, the idea of seeing the X-Men moving, not on the comic page, hearing their voices, seeing them in action, seeing Wolverine take down a Sentinel, just like we've seen it in a sense drawn. They've taken a number of cues for these characters and brought them to life from the comics, specific little scenes here and there. And their personalities are all intact, pretty much lifted right from the page. They're not really any different than they are in the comics. They have... That's a loud car. They have... when we are introduced to them, they're still new to the world. I mean, the world doesn't know who they are, and they're kind of brought into the limelight by taking the risk of rescuing a young new mutant, Jubilee. No, not Kitty Pryde. We had Pride of the X-Men, which was like a little short movie just before this, I believe, and that was about rescuing Kitty Pryde. But being that Kitty was a character that was introduced in the 70s, and this kind of was... And I mean, Claremont and Byrne brought everything, made X-Men the biggest selling title. It took it from nothing and made it the biggest selling title. I mean, yes, Bob and Len and everybody else were involved in that as well, but it really took off with the new X-Men, and in giant size, and then building on making this very convoluted, complex history for them. It especially with the Dark Phoenix saga and everything else, it was kind of the biggest book in the world. Then guys like Jim Lee came along and sort of gave it a whole new style. He started drawing for them. Art Adams, the art sort of started drawing people a little bit more. I'm partial to Paul Smith, but again, I'm talking comic book nerd stuff, and maybe you're not a comic book nerd, so this makes no sense to you. But yeah, there's a lot of little bits lifted right from the comics, which is great. But this era, because it's not the 70s or early 80s anymore, this is the 90s. Jubilee was introduced to the comics in the 80s, late 80s-ish, yeah, after the Fall of the Mutants. Kind of the storyline, and because she rescues Wolverine in the outback after he's crucified, and she gets teleported there from a California mall, and that's the comic book story. But in this case, she's a mall rat who is rescued by the X-Men in the mall. Her adoptive parents, her foster parents, I should say, have taken her in, but the dad registers her with the mutant registration organization, and that's just not a good idea, because they're just like a watchdog group looking to capture mutants and then do horrible things to them. They're not part of the government officially, but they work with the government. And of course, then the X-Men are exposed. They're out there, they're fighting the Sentinels. The first two episodes are a 1 and 2 part Night of the Sentinel story. So we get to introduce, you get a chance to introduce all the X-Men, and you also get to see them cut loose because they're just robots. They can shoot laser beams, and Wolverine can hack and slash all he needs to, and that's what everybody wanted to see, because they're like, Wolverine is the hottest, seriously. I mean, he's still popular now, but back then. He was just the coolest character in the world. We didn't know any of his history. He was so mysterious. He was the guy who we wanted to be. We wanted to be able to cut loose like he does and take down our enemies, the people who treat us bad, the bullies. He didn't take anybody's crap. That was the kind of thing that was appealing to young comic book lovers back then, and probably even now. But this series encapsulates very much everything that's of the late 80s and early 90s, and maybe the animation hasn't aged well. It looks great for its time, but you wouldn't, if this suddenly came out today, you'd be like, what is going on with this? It's a Saban Films series. I think it's an American-made, 100% American-made. At least all the animators listed in the credits seem American, with American names. Usually when it's a Korean team or usually where a lot of animation is done, they start listing a lot of Korean names, and I didn't see one. Maybe I'm completely wrong, but either way, it borrows a lot from Japanese animation styles and some very Western styles as well. You'll see elements of G.I. Joe, and I can't say it's exactly. I mean, I'm no animation naming expert, but it has its own look. It has also try not to get the theme song stuck in your head. Come on, you hear this thing? It's one of the most iconic theme songs of any animated series, with no lyrics, with just that kind of thing. Yeah, it's in your head forever. You can't get it out. As for the X-Men that are in this, obviously I just mentioned Jubilee. We got Wolverine and Jean Grey, Gambit, Rogue, Cyclops, Beast, Morph, Storm. Actually, if you watch the theme song, you'll notice that one of them isn't really mentioned. So you can pretty much guess that one of them's not going to be sticking around for too long. So that gets decided pretty quickly, pretty early. But going forward with these characters, they touch on a humongous number of iconic moments in the X-Men comics. I scrolled ahead. There's 5 seasons, by the way. These are all about 22 minutes each. I watched the first 3 episodes, which is Night of the Sentinel and Enter Magneto. And so we get to see Magneto for the first time. And he, of course, battles the X-Men, and Xavier gives a very brief explanation of his history with him, with stuff we've seen in the live action X-Men movies, but literally condensed down to 2 minutes or less. It's a crash course in the Magneto Xavier history, and it stays fairly one-to-one, except for the war that's mentioned where Magneto's family was killed, because World War II doesn't really make a whole lot of sense. Otherwise, he'd be ancient. They'd both be ancient. They're just rough about the war that happened, where Magneto and his family were abused and parents killed. So, yeah, that's one big change, but not enough to make any kind of difference story-wise. What else we got? I looked ahead, like I said, with future storylines, and pretty much every character you can think of, although I don't remember seeing Kitty Pryde at all. Pretty much every character you can think of, villain-wise and hero-wise, is going to make an appearance. You're like, where's Nightcrawler? Where's Colossus and everybody else? Well, they show up. They eventually show up. I think Havoc is in here at some point, and probably Polaris. But Juggernaut, of course, shows up, and Apocalypse, Longshot, and Spiral, and they even have the Morlocks are in this, just in a few episodes after this. The Morlocks, the Phalanx. I'm just going off the top of my head. By the way, each of these series seasons are like 13 15, 19, and then there's like 25 episodes at one point, and then there's like 6. So it's a really uneven set of episodes, but it's good fun. If you haven't seen these kind of things, again, if you're not really an X-Men fan, superhero fan, and you're not a big animation fan, this is not going to really do anything for you. But if you love the nostalgia of this era, and you want to you love comics and things like that, if you haven't caught up on it, like I haven't, it's time to add it. So that's what I'm going to do. Eventually, I'm going to go through this entire series, but not anytime soon. I have a lot of these I keep clicking off, but yeah. Oh, there's Cable. Cable shows up too. So yeah, pretty much all the big tent poles of the 80s and 90s era comics stories are touched on in this. So yeah, we're going to the Mojoverse. Jeez. You know what? Let me check. Let me go through a few of these. Enter Magneto. No. Let's see. Look at season 2. Oh yeah, Shadow King. Oh, spoilers in there. Omega Red. There's Spiral. Oh, and this, by the way, season 3. If you're interested, season 3 is pretty much most of the episodes are the Dark Phoenix saga. So, if you just want to see a live-action version of the Dark Phoenix saga, just fleshed out over nearly 15 episodes. Yeah. Oh, Starjammers are in here. Is that the Wendy? Oh, and they go to the Savage Land. There's what you call it. What's his face? Oh, there's I can't say his name. Gladiator. Iceman shows up. We get an origin for Silver Samurai. So yeah, there's a number of X-Men. I mean, Cannonball shows up. I don't know if all the New Mutants do, but Cannonball shows up. I know that much. A Weapon X throwback. Master Mold, Bishop. Okay, so Proteus. So no, go back. All right. Anyway, I've talked too much about this already. But yeah, X-Men is your thing. This is something you gotta make sure you've taken part in. I'm surprised I've taken this long to even bother doing it. But I have Disney Plus now, so I can watch it whenever I want. So why not? Never really gave myself the opportunity. But for now, let's check tomorrow's episode. 455. 455. Oh, we already had this one. I thought it seemed familiar. 455 was Recess, taking the 5th grade. Yeah, we're not going to watch that again. There's plenty of Recess to come, I'm sure. 8. Whoa. We haven't gone that low in a while. Watch it be one we've already done. Have we done 8 before? No, we have not. Hey, we had a Pixar movie. Can you imagine what that might be that begins with A? A Bug's Life. A Bug's Life. That's what we're watching next. I haven't watched this thing since the 90s. That's not an exaggeration. I may have watched it 3 or 4 times in my entire life. But yeah, it's time to revisit it. We've done Toy Story, the very first one, so let's watch the second Pixar film. Right, the second one, yeah, A Bug's Life. All right. I guess I'll see you tomorrow on the Disney Plus Everyday Challenge with A Bug's Life. See you then.